Let me take you back to 2016, specifically towards the end of the year when we got the first Touch Bar MacBook Pro. This machine was barely any faster than its predecessor, while costing upwards of $400 more, had a gimmicky touch bar replacing the function keys and escape key, had a terrible butterfly keyboard that was incredibly prone to issues, had awful thermal performance, and immensely poor repairability with glued-in batteries and a non-replaceable keyboard. Now, let's say you travel back in time 10 years ago to someone with one of those Macs, and you show them this, a brand new MacBook costing only $600, having a display that looks really good, having an actual scissored keyboard with a nice key feel, featuring an iPhone chip that barely sips any power and outperforms every single Intel MacBook ever made, and happens to be the most repairable MacBook in 14 years. That person from 10 years ago wouldn't have believed this to be possible, and yet, here we are. The MacBook Neo isn't just a new MacBook, it's a paradigm shift for Apple and the entire computer industry. For the first time ever, Apple is delving into the market of budget laptops. Budget laptops always have compromises, whether it's build quality, performance, displays, battery life, or more, there is always a catch. But with the MacBook Neo, there kinda isn't. The MacBook Neo isn't trying to be the best at anything, and that's what makes it the best MacBook for basically everyone. The design of the MacBook Neo feels unlike any other brand new $600 laptop on the market. It's premium, it feels indistinguishable from the rest of the MacBook lineup. It's solid, premium, aluminum and glass. There's no creaking, no noticeable flex, nothing. It's just solid, durable, and for the first time in decades, it's fun. This is the most colorful MacBook since the iBook G3 clamshell from 1999 and 2000, and especially in this citrus color. It looks so refreshing. I've been getting tired of seeing Apple release these silver and very subtle colors for MacBooks for so many years. Seeing something like this citrus color on the MacBook Neo is so fresh and beautiful. The rounded body of the MacBook Neo feels so comfortable. This thing is even more rounded than the current gen MacBook Air and MacBook Pro, as even the screen portion is rounded. So compared to something like my M1 MacBook Air, the MacBook Neo is going to feel significantly more comfortable than any other Mac notebook. And it'll age a lot better. My M1 MacBook Air with its super sharp edges has noticeable chips around the edges, and you notice it anytime you open the machine. This rounded chassis feels and looks so much more playful than any other MacBook released in the past decade. That also trickles into the display. This thing lacks the notch, which arguably makes it look even more futuristic than the MacBook Pro and MacBook Air. And being the only current MacBook to feature a traditional 16:10 aspect ratio, basically every single app will take up every single pixel on the display in full screen mode. However, the weaknesses of the display start to become apparent once we get into the nitty-gritty. Compared to the MacBook Air, it lacks P3 wide color and True Tone. While True Tone isn't such a big loss, P3 probably is. The black levels on this display are noticeably worse than the MacBook Air, and compared to the MacBook Pro with its mini LED display, it's not even close. However, this display still absolutely decimates any competing laptop in its price range, featuring an actual Retina quality display and featuring 500 nits of brightness and nice rounded corners. It absolutely destroys competing laptops with low resolution panels and low brightness. The keyboard feels just as good to type on as every other modern day Mac notebook. We're long past the dark days of the butterfly keyboard. This keyboard feels nice. It's reliable, it's fantastic, it's just all around amazing. But there are two drawbacks: the lack of Touch ID on the base 256GB model and the lack of the backlit keyboard, the latter of which being the most major. Apple hasn't shipped a Mac notebook without a backlit keyboard since 2010, so this being omitted from the MacBook Neo may feel like a weird move. But here's the silver lining. This is the first MacBook keyboard to feature color matching keycaps, and combined with a bright 500 nit display, it actually isn't too bad to type in the dark with this thing. The speakers are nothing special. In fact, they are by far the weakest of any modern day Apple notebook. Even compared to my 5-year-old M1 MacBook Air, the Neo's speakers still pale in comparison. But for casual listening, these speakers will be totally fine for most people, and compared to similarly priced Windows laptops, the Neo still laps around them. The trackpad is another area of compromise and may unfortunately be my personal biggest issue with this machine. This is the first MacBook in 9 years to not feature a Force Touch trackpad, instead featuring a traditional mechanical trackpad. However, it's not a diving board trackpad like you may see in many Windows devices. This trackpad still clicks anywhere you click, and it isn't angled like a diving board. And depending on who you ask, the physical click may actually feel better to some people than the haptic click of the Force Touch trackpad, but my biggest issue is the sensitivity. With the Force Touch trackpad, you can manually adjust the sensitivity to more or less sensitive. On the MacBook Neo, you obviously can't adjust the sensitivity in software. You can via hardware though, but most people won't take apart their machine just to adjust the trackpad sensitivity. By default, in my experience, the trackpad is very easy to accidentally let go of when you take a screenshot, for example. It's pretty frustrating coming from a Force Touch trackpad, but once again, compared to the competition, this trackpad is a night and day difference. Most modern day Windows laptops for this price, or even many times more than this, don't stand a chance. The two USB-C ports are fine, but they're not ideal. These ports aren't Thunderbolt, and it's pretty clear. One of them runs at 1/4 the speed of Thunderbolt 4, while the other runs at 1/80th the speed. This being a limitation of the SoC, more on that later. But for a computer like this, most people will actually probably not even use the physical I/O for most of their use cases. Aside from just charging, they'll likely rely on the wireless connectivity features like AirDrop, Bluetooth, AirPlay, and much more. And this machine is ready for all of those features with Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 6. And if you use traditional wired headphones, the headphone jack, while not supporting high impedance headphones, is in the best position of any MacBook. It's on the left, which is where most headphones have their cable, and it's much closer towards you, so you don't have to reach as much. But by far the biggest surprise perk of this machine is repairability. The last time many people would consider a MacBook truly repairable would have been 2012, with the final iteration of the original unibody MacBook Pro. Ever since then, things were never the same. Batteries got glued down, to the point where it was just easier to replace the entire top case. The keyboards were riveted into place, making it almost impossible to replace them without hurting yourself. And the ports were soldered onto the logic board, making them impossible to replace individually. Apple's notebooks for the longest time were among the least repairable notebooks you can buy. Now, the MacBook Neo completely shifts that narrative. There's practically zero adhesive holding things in place. The logic board and battery could be removed without tearing apart the whole notebook. The battery itself is held in with screws. No glue or pull tabs in sight. The ports are modular, and even the keyboard can be replaced without needing to destroy the whole computer. And Apple provides a built-in repair assistant, repair manuals, and later down the road, official parts and tools you can purchase directly from them. These are things that were simply unfathomable a decade ago, but now we're living in that reality. The cheapest MacBook is also the most repairable MacBook. But now we get into the elephant in the room, the A18 Pro chip. This is the first Mac product ever to use an iPhone chip. Not just an iPhone chip, an 18-month-old binned iPhone chip. This is something that instantly would raise concern to some, but if you look at the broader picture, this actually isn't asinine at all. A decade ago in 2016, Apple's 8 series chips were already nearing or outperforming the chips found in recent MacBooks of the era, albeit with much less RAM. But by the time we got to the A11 Bionic with the iPhone X in 2017, the A series chips were not only besting the MacBook or MacBook Air at the time, but even the 13-inch MacBook Pro at the time. And with the A12X Bionic in the 2018 iPad Pro, the A-series chips were even rivaling the 15-inch MacBook Pro at the time. Coincidentally, this was close to the time we started hearing rumors that Apple would be switching to their own custom silicon for the Mac. And sure enough, in 2020, Apple made their own custom silicon for the Mac with the M1, based on the blueprints of the then latest A14 Bionic used in the iPhone 12 and iPad Air of that year, which already outperformed every MacBook Pro from 2017 and earlier. And when scaled up for a Mac, M1 did things we'd never seen before. M1 was so powerful that the base $999 fanless MacBook Air was outperforming the highest-end $6,000 Core i9 16-inch MacBook Pro at the time. Over the past 5 years, Apple has been iterating on their core architecture gradually, bringing us to today, where now the A18 Pro, a chip that's not even the current iPhone chip, is outperforming the M1 chip from 2020, a chip that barely maxes out at 10 watts of power consumption is outperforming a chip that was already outperforming every single Intel MacBook ever made. That is ridiculous. There were so many people who weren't even getting close to the threshold of the M1, and they won't be nearing the threshold of this either. Now obviously, this thing can be pushed to its limits if you really strain it. When running Final Cut Pro, it actually performs pretty decently, but can't handle huge projects. In Xcode, when running a Vision OS simulator, it's practically unusable, but when running an iOS simulator, it's not too shabby. And running the 8 billion parameter Qwen 3 AI model locally is not actually that bad. Again, it's not designed for any of this, but the fact that it can do it at all should tell you something. For what this machine is intended for, this is more than enough power, and frankly, this is such a smart decision on a pure supply chain perspective. Apple sells hundreds of millions of iPhones every year. That includes hundreds of millions of Apple A-series chips. Now that the A-series chip has become so powerful, hundreds of millions, or practically close to billions of people are walking around with a literal supercomputer in their pocket. They're walking around with a device more capable and powerful than nearly any shipping laptop about half a decade ago. That means Apple has so many of these powerful A-series chips that they can simply use in an affordable MacBook like this one, because it basically costs them nothing to use one of these chips in a notebook. Apple has pulled this off before. The Studio Display XDR, a computer monitor, uses the A19 Pro chip with 12 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, a monitor is more powerful than this MacBook it can connect to. But Apple has so many of these A19 and A19 Pro chips used in iPhones that it costs them almost nothing to throw into a display. And that's the same case with this MacBook Neo. So, overall, the MacBook Neo is really not the best MacBook at anything, but that is what makes it the best Mac and probably the best computer for basically everyone. In every aspect, this is a good computer. It compromises in the right aspects while excelling in the aspects that matter for the user experience. Admittedly, there are many Windows laptops that are priced similarly to the MacBook Neo that are faster, that may feature a better display, that may feature better battery life, and that may feature better I/O. But there isn't a Windows laptop priced similarly that has all of that. And more importantly, there isn't a brand new laptop priced similarly that features an OS that's this polished and an OS this reliable. There isn't a competing laptop at any price that integrates and works this well with the most popular smartphone in the world. And most importantly, there isn't a competing laptop that delivers an overall user experience this polished. This allows more users than ever to experience the Mac for the first time. This allows for more people to experience Apple's services. This allows Apple to sell new users on more of their products, like the iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and more. The MacBook Neo is the best Mac for most of you, and the best Mac for Apple. It represents a fundamental paradigm shift in Apple's Mac lineup, and it's now become the default laptop recommendation for everyone.